Hi, and welcome to the Overhaul Eagle Eye podcast. I am your host, as always, David Warrick. I am joined today by Steve Molina from Under Armour. Steve is the Supply Chain Asset Protection Director at Under Armour. Steve, welcome.
Thank you, David. Appreciate you having us on today.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. And so, Steve, we'll jump right in. A couple of months ago, Under Armour hosted an event in Mexico City. That event was all around supply chain security. Overhaul partnered with you on that event. Tell us a little bit about what happened on the day.
Yeah, thanks, David. Appreciate it. So I guess I'd start in going back to our Chief Security Officer, Fred Bielfeld, his vision. And, given the fact that Under Armour has experienced, unfortunately, like a lot of retailers, a lot of cargo theft in Mexico over the years, we just felt it was important because of, again, the amount of cargo theft incidents we've seen annually. Host an in-person summit with a partner like Overhaul that would allow attendees real-time collaboration where we could share intelligence on emerging trends. We obviously know that the data shows that a lot of these spikes are occurring in the Mexico City corridor, as Overhaul is well aware. And again, bringing together those retailers, the logistics providers, we had a great law enforcement presence there. It allows us to create actionable strategies and hopefully reduce and mitigate the risk of cargo theft moving forward. So it was really important to us to have an event like this.
No, and it's great. I mean, it's great, obviously that Fred sponsored it as well. But in terms of, these in-person sessions are, we're coming out of the COVID years where nobody went to any in-person meetings. And so actually having people in the room, it is important. It is important to be able to have those conversations outside of the presentations and outside of the slide deck reveals. It is important to actually, for practitioners in particular, to be able to sit down and actually have those chats and have those discussions. What were your key takeaways? What did you come away from the summit with in your head?
Yeah, I think, there's something I heard years ago and it's always stuck with me. And it's, I forget where I heard it from, if I'm being honest, but it was something along the lines of the keys to prevention, in this case of cargo theft, are common sense along with a connected, information enabled, collaborative supply chain that responds quickly and decisively to external threats. And again, that's always stuck with me. And I think as I think about this summit that we had, the relevant topics that were on the agenda were just outstanding. So I'll start with the intelligence updates. Of course, we all know that cargo theft is an issue in Mexico. Otherwise, we wouldn't be there for the summit, first and foremost. But second of all, one of the takeaways was just the current mitigation strategies. We've spent a lot of time partnering with folks like Overhaul. We've had a tremendous amount of success in mitigating the risk for Under Armour specifically. But attending a summit like this allowed us to collaborate again with other retailers, with the logistics providers, with law enforcement, and just, give us an opportunity to hear firsthand, what are they doing? Benchmark a little bit and see what's working for them, what's not working. So being able to be present, like you said, in person, have those discussions and learn from them was huge. And there certainly was a couple of takeaways and relationships that we made at the summit that have already had an immediate successful impact on Under Armour.
And that's the thing. I mean, it's not just Under Armour, right? I mean, it is all big brands are actually, suffering from the same type of problems. And the ability for the industry to work together is increasingly important. We're not dealing with opportunistic theft here. This is organized crime, and organized crime going after valuable cargo because they know that they can resell it, which is a great thing, by the way, for the Under Armour brand. I mean, that means that your products are in demand and they're highly sellable. So that's a good thing, but it's also a concern as well. And so part of the summit, there was a chief security officer roundtable. What did you hear as the different CSOs actually got together?
Yeah, again, in the beginning, you asked me what was one of my biggest takeaways, and certainly the CSO roundtable was one of them. As we worked with Overhaul and Holly and the team just to talk about the agenda, we felt it was important to put together that type of roundtable because you have folks like myself and a lot of my peers that were present at the conference, and we know and we talk all the time, and we view the cargo theft issue in Mexico a certain way. We view it through a certain lens. But I think in my case, people like Fred and Luis and Elizabeth who were on the panel, being able to listen to them and see how those type of security executives view cargo theft through their lens, it's important. It's important to understand how they see it. And I also think it's important because it helps stress the importance of raising awareness with, again, in our case, our C-suite executive level and understanding the cargo theft issue that is present in Mexico. And maybe more importantly, what are the downstream impacts of cargo theft? So that was certainly one of the biggest takeaways for the CSO roundtable.
And I think that, like, that's really an important point as well, Steve, which is, this is not just about losing product due to theft. This has got a much bigger impact. So, from an Under Armour perspective, whenever you think about that, whenever you think about, that potential to lose something in transit, what does it actually mean to you as a brand? What does it mean to you as in terms of how it impacts your customers? What really goes through your mind?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something, again, we've spent a lot of time. It's important to make sure that our stakeholders at Under Armour are aware of, again, those downstream impacts. But I guess first and foremost, I'd say the financial loss and increased costs. So, of course, you have the direct loss of stolen goods. And a lot of our shipments in Mexico are tandem shipments in the case of our inbound shipments. So even just one cargo theft incident could cost us retail value millions of dollars, not to mention the additional cost to replace that inventory, expedite shipments, how it impacts insurance premiums, things like that. The other thing would be just the fact that it's going to lead to SKU shortages, whether it be in our store with our wholesalers, our e-commerce platforms, et cetera. So it certainly can disrupt our sales cycles as a brand, and the timing that we want to get that product on the shelf for our customers. So that's certainly something that comes to mind. Then I would say just the brand reputation damage. We all know, and again, all the attendees that were in attendance are well aware that a lot of these stolen goods, they unfortunately end up in the black markets where they're sold at, a lower price point, or in some cases they've been damaged, et cetera. It really just undermines the trust that our customers have in Under Armour and the quality that we have, and et cetera. So that's certainly another point as well. And then, look, we've really, really done a lot of work. And again, Overhaul is a great example, been a great partner to us to help mitigate this risk. But all that comes at a price, right? So there's a cost to increasing security and operating, and how it impacts operational expenses. So we've done a lot, and it's the right thing to do. But at the end of the day, it eats into those operational costs. So again, those are just some of the things that I think about as we talk about the downstream impacts of cargo theft.
Those are great points, and I do, I love the focus on the customer and the fact that there is an impact to the brand. It's not just the financial loss of losing the product in transit. It's actually the fact that those are items that are not going to be on the right shelf at the right place at the right time for the customer. It obviously impacts your availability. And then to your point, you're going to incur expedite costs to then replenish that product in a faster way. And as you're going through product launch cycles and you're going through back to school and other major events, which are really driving demand in your business, these things can actually have quite a serious impact. So it is important to understand that. At Overhaul, we continually have this conversation, which is this is not just about protecting supply chain; it's also about protecting brand. It's about protecting the customer loyalty and all of those different things as well. It's a much bigger play, which is interesting. As Fred really has this vision about building the community, conversations that you're having, are they opening up? Because traditionally in supply chain, we tend to like to keep our own information a little bit within our own four walls. Are those conversations actually starting to happen a little bit more broadly, or did you see that as a result of the summit, you're starting to see more of that openness?
Absolutely. And you nailed it, David. Throughout the 8 or 9 years that Fred and myself have been engaged with Under Armour Mexico, and the threat that exists there with cargo theft, we, like many other retailers, operate in a silo at times, and we really were trying to do the right thing. And at the time, wasn't doing a whole lot of benchmarking, but that has certainly changed over the years. And having a partner like Overhaul has really helped us do that. And not just having an event like, we were talking about today, this summit, but being at that summit and collaborating and meeting some of my peers and these other leaders you start to build relationships. And, since the summit, I've had literally dozens of conversations with my peers, with some of the law enforcement partners, specifically Homeland Security, who was present for the Cargo Theft Summit, and just simply benchmarked. And it's already made a very positive impact on how we see things, how we're doing things, how we're evolving our security strategy as it relates to Mexico. I'd also share, I mentioned Homeland Security, HSI. We just in the last month or so, we had a cargo theft incident in which a tandem inbound shipment was hijacked by bad actors. Without going too far into details, of course, with the support of Overhaul, their response protocol was immediately enacted. And long story short, the shipment was recovered. But as a lot of my peers are aware of, and the attendees there, is that that's just the beginning of trying to recover that cargo, in this case from Mexico law enforcement. Local authorities impound the containers and they take it to their police yard. And that sometimes can take weeks, even months to recover. And using HSI as the example, who, again, I think was one of the really big hits of the conference, reaching out to them and being able to leverage their contacts within the Mexico government really helped us expedite the release of that cargo. So again, not just with my peers in the retail world, but also the law enforcement personnel that were present and presented. We're already seeing a lot of positive things happen because of those relationships.
Oh, that's amazing. And it is part of the mix, which is a lot of this is around awareness. It's about helping the industry understand the serious consequences of the challenges of cargo theft in the supply chain. And when the authorities step in and they understand, and when they hear from brands like Under Armour, a world leading brand, it actually helps to reinforce just how serious this is and how they need to step up. So that's fantastic to hear that they actually did. And I would say that that is largely as a consequence of having them in the room in the summit and actually starting to build those relationships. And, at Overhaul, we are continually trying to foster those relationships with law enforcement and with government agencies, but also bringing it right back to the customer as well and bringing it back to the brands, because no one person wins in this fight. We all, it is a collective accountability here, and the more that we're able to work together and the more that we're able to actually push some of these barriers, we're all going to do a lot better as a result. And Overhaul are delighted to play a role, as a concierge, as a facilitator in a lot of those conversations. So it's great to hear that. All too often we attend these industry conferences, Steve, and we walk away with a lot of insight, and then we go back to our normal job and everything goes back to the same again. But it's wonderful to hear that there's follow-ups happening. There was a real impact in terms of that recovery and the speed at which things happened. And hopefully that's a really good signal for everyone to say that we are continuing to make progress. We are continuing to make a difference. And the more that we can, Under Armour and yourself and Fred have done a great job in terms of sponsoring this to bring the industry together. We now need to see more of that. We now need to see that continuing to broaden out. And the more that we can work together and the more that we can actually understand from each other's experiences can only help this industry move forward.
Absolutely, David. We're excited about, already having discussions with Overhaul about having the event next year. I believe Overhaul, as has Under Armour, had a number of retailers reach out and want to participate, want to sponsor the event. So we're excited about doing this annually with Overhaul. And I know it's important to Overhaul and it's important to Under Armour. We've solicited feedback from those in attendance. It's going to be important that each year we evolve the agenda and the topics being discussed. There's a lot of cargo theft conferences out there and all of them are good. We want this one to be special. We want it to be one that folks attend and they truly walk away with, again, a lot of actionable takeaways. So we're excited about next year's event and looking forward to partnering with Overhaul again.
Steve Molina, thank you so much for your time. It continues to be a pleasure working with you. Thanks everybody for listening. This has been the Eagle Eye podcast from Overhaul. If you like our content, please give us a thumbs up and follow us. If you want us to talk about something else, please give us that feedback. Thank you so much for listening.